and also active in many galleries in the Seattle area, having a couple decades of group and solo shows on her resume, which is pretty good. Someday I'll follow her footsteps. Her work has been in numerous publications and on cover of best-selling books, and inside the school book in Europe. So she's pretty active on that. I'm very happy to have her here today, and I let her, with her own word, to tell us what inspires to do what she does. Go ahead, Carrie.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Hadi, and thank you everybody for having me here. I'm coming to you straight from Seattle, and we are not snowed in, amazingly enough. I wanted to talk a little bit about my experiences as a henna artist, how that influenced and changed my other artwork. I kind of think of my life as BH and AH, before henna and after henna. I don't know how many of you are actually familiar with all that familiar with henna, but I'll be explaining how it works. I'm going to be doing a small demo on a piece of clayboard, but I'm not going to give you recipes. I will, however, give you a supply list, and you can look up recipes yourself, because everybody has their own ways of making it. So just to start off with saying that I saw henna for the first time in 1994. My daughter was 13 years old. I came into a little chunk of money, and I was wondering, shall I do something productive, like put a down payment on a house, or should I take the money and take her on a trip, a 6-month trip around Europe and the Middle East? And I guess you can guess which one won. So we traveled all through Europe, and we spent some time in Turkey, Greece, Israel, and Egypt. In Egypt, we went on a Bedouin tour, and that's where I saw henna for the first time. And I was intrigued with the designs. They were very simple, but effective. And when I came back to the US, it took me a couple of years to get more information and learn how to make it after a lot of stops and starts. And in 1997, I started doing it professionally. A lot of interesting things about the henna plant. It always leaves a reddish brown stain. It acts differently on skin than it does on other mediums, and that is because it has the unique characteristic of bonding to keratin. So anything that comes from a living creature, human or otherwise, you will get a much better stain than you will if you try to do it on wood or plastic, or, you know, people try all different kinds of things. So you get a really good stain if you work on leather, if you work on chamois skin, you work on bone, you can stain silk. It doesn't work as well on cotton as it does on silk, because silk is got keratin in it. And I just went kind of crazy with henna for the first few years, learning all the different techniques and learning what people were doing. In the beginning, I was only working on bodies. And then I started doing fairs and festivals, and I often found myself with leftover henna at the end of a festival and wondering, what am I going to do with that? In the beginning, like the first 5 or 6 years, I started doing pretty much what all the other henna artists were doing, and that is henna on candles, henna on cards, henna on paper. You know, we had a pretty tight henna community going online. So, you know, I was doing kind of simple things like cards and candles.
Those cards are cool.
Yeah. But you know, the henna won't actually stain the candles, so you have to seal the henna paste on to the you have to seal the henna paste onto a surface where it doesn't stick. And we also had with the cards, it was kind of fun because we had exchanges, postcard and letter exchanges with other henna artists all over the world, and we had Secret Santa, and there was really, you know, a fun community going. I'm trying to get the camera focused here. So anyway, so then I started trying to find more ways of using it. And I went to Morocco for about, well, this was before I even knew you could do henna on other things. 2000, in 2000, I went to Morocco and I spent 5 weeks in Morocco, and I went traveling around collecting henna patterns, talking to people. And I met this amazing woman, Berber lady at the Sacred Music Festival in Fez. And she was really a visionary. She was making these huge goat hides with painted with henna and magic markers, color markers, and they were pictures of demons and trees and just things that you wouldn't normally have thought about doing with henna. um, but the interesting thing is that that's how I learned how to work on drums. So so then I did a lot of drums. There's one. And this is a skin. So
That's beautiful.
so it works really well on drums if your drum is a natural skin drum. So let's see what else. What was I going to show you? I'm going to try and access my folder and see if I can show you a couple of early. You know, I started using henna on paper and canvas. Started working on canvas. I wasn't really satisfied with the way it felt and the way it looked on canvas. So at a certain point, I switched over to a harder background. Let me see if I can share screen with my folder. Let's see. Can I have some help here, Sloan? Sloan?
If you mouse over on the bottom part of it, it will show up.
It looks like it's working. It's
Somehow I accidentally minimized my screen here.
we can see as let's see.
All you see is the Zoom background.
Yeah,
Yeah, I see the whole screen though. I see your whole screen. So I think if you open your folder.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, so I'm going to show you one of the earliest pieces of henna work that I did. See, now I can't see you guys. I can only see, can you see the picture?
Yes,
Yes.
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 Oh yes, it's one of my favorites.
Yes, we can see your screen.
All right.
You
So,
can see
so
the
this
lizard.
is a really early piece I did, and it was really inspired by my trip to Morocco because they had these beautiful mirrors that were all ornately designed, and the henna I did on the lizard and the diamond pattern. Those are all significant Moroccan henna patterns. And the rest is I did with puffy paint, and so that was one of my earliest pieces. Let's see if I can find something else for you.
What was that on, Kree? Was that on wood?
No, it was on paper, but I put it in a frame, and then I painted the frame. I assembled the frame.
I see.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So yeah. So I'll just do this back again so you can see it. I cut this frame out, and these are pieces from an old staircase that I painted and screwed onto the sides. I basically was trying to mimic these beautiful Moroccan mirrors that I couldn't afford to buy. And this is paper. This is on paper. So the thing is that I really had to seal the heck out of it because the henna does dry and flake off and crack after a while if it's not sealed properly. I'm just going to try and find another. There's this another piece on paper. I really experimented a lot with doing acrylic backgrounds and then sealing the henna and then painting over it again. So I was taking it like another step further.
What did you seal it with?
I was mostly sealing it with the artist medium or Mod Podge. Okay. I was finding that if I'm doing it with Mod Podge, it left kind of a sticky feeling to it. So I didn't like that. So I mostly am using artist medium. So this one was a little bit later. I spent a little bit more time. I did more layers, more layering, and I used a little bit more traditional patterns. I'm going to try and zoom in a little bit more. So you can see a lot of these are really traditional style henna patterns that I used. But probably there are like 4 or 5 layers of paint and henna and paint and seal it and paint and seal it and henna again in order to get effects. So this is several years old, but I still have it, and I still love it. I kind of thought of it as sort of a jungly. It's called Jungle Sprite, but I was sort of thinking of pictures of some women from tribal women from Tamil Nadu. Was sort of my inspiration for this. And let's see what else. I've also, besides doing the traditional Indian patterns, Debbie will recognize this because I did this at the fair when we were working together. This is a little bit more Celtic-y thing with leaping bunny rabbits and Celtic spirals around it. Sometimes I'm channeling my Celtic side, and sometimes I'm channeling my more Middle Eastern side. So,
is that a watercolor background?
No, it's acrylic.
Okay.
Almost everything I do is acrylic, at least in the past. Lately, I've been working with gouache, but I'm not using that with henna. Okay. I'm really enamored of gouache right now. So, okay, so. At one point, probably about 5 years ago, I was doing some henna pieces on a piece of masonite and thinking that I wasn't really all that enamored of it at first. I'm thinking, well, I'm just going to paint over it. So I painted over it, and then I thought, wow, I just painted white gesso over it, and I thought, wow, that's kind of interesting. Maybe I should just paint over the henna. So then I started developing this technique for, and I'm going to show you one of my first pieces that I did. I developed this technique where you don't actually know that it's henna. And I discovered a sealant that was better for sealing the henna, and it's on my supply list. So I will share the supply list with you in a while. So this was a piece called Red Bat Mandala. And basically, this took me a long time to do, but I was actually working on it when I sold it. Someone was watching me work on it at a gallery, and I sold it right away, which made me really happy. But it was, I was just learning how to paint over. I did the henna, then I sealed it, then I painted the background, and then I started painting on top. And I also used some puffy paint here. And I realized as I was working on it that if I figured out, I still struggle with this, but I figured out what direction the light was coming from. If I started painting dark areas behind where the henna was 3D, it would really pop. You know, it would make it look really 3D. You can see that here in the center a little bit. So I did several pieces like this. But
Hey, what was the medium this was on? Like, this is amazing, but I just wanted to.
Masonite. It's Masonite, and it's acrylic, puffy paint, and henna on Masonite. This is also an early piece that I did where I was really struggling with the light. I still struggle with light. I don't really, one of these days I'm going to have to really learn more about lighting and angles and stuff. And this piece, I was really, really starting to try to learn to shade, and it looks kind of grainy.
So beautiful.
It's not a
Yeah.
great photo,
How
but
much time you would take to complete one piece like this? This is
Good
too interesting.
question.
probably working on it every day for a few hours probably take me about 2 to 3 weeks.
Wow.
And they're about
That's pretty
they're
fast.
actually about 16. You're usually about 16 by 20, or or in the vicinity of 16 inches. Sometimes it's square. Sometimes this one I'm pretty sure was 16 by 20.
Mhm. The texture looked like embroidery. It's very beautiful.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I was gonna say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and these designs here in the corner are really very Persian-y. I really grew to have an appreciation for Persian henna designs. That's the interesting thing about henna, is that so many different cultures have used it. It's been used since the prehistoric times.
Mm-hmm.
And so many different cultures have used it, and it's spread from basically where Iraq and Iran are today, spread out from there. The oldest records we have of henna are from the area between the Tigris and Euphrates and on into Iran. And for the thousands of years, when henna was used, it was very simple because it was applied with a stick, and it was just lines and dots. And really, I'd have to say the height of henna artistry started in Iran, and the florally designs, and the Iranians really sort of elevated it to a high art, and then other countries got a lot of their inspiration and design work from Iran. Anyway, so this is very Persian-y design. Let's see here. Okay, so here's one that's a little bit more recent. I'm really playing a lot with mandalas because it seems to kind of go with the henna. And a lot of times I don't know what I'm doing when I start out. I'll just start from a centerpiece and then I'll work outwards. I love doing mandala designs, but with a twist. And this is called Ghost Bat Mandala. And it's also 16 by 20. And I think I did a much more detailed, credible job with the shadowing to make this paint, to make this really pop. Around this time, I was really looking for other artists and other people to see what other people were doing, because in the henna community, I think a lot of changes came a little bit slow, and there were a few people who are really outstanding at taking henna and just flying with it and go shooting off into other directions. And if you don't mind, I would like to show you. I would like to show you a short PowerPoint. About 5 or 6 years ago, I did a lecture and I spent a lot of time. It's a really extensive PowerPoint, and I didn't want to show the whole thing here, but I did take out just a couple of things from my PowerPoint. So hopefully we can see this. Because I started discovering there were artists all over the world who were using henna or henna patterns, were actually using henna or were painting depictions of henna. And here is my PowerPoint. And I just took a couple of, this is very short, I just took a couple of things out of. Okay, so this was the PowerPoint I did for the Henna Intensive, which Debbie was one of the co-founders of the Henna Intensive conference. And I did a lecture that took about an hour, and this is what I created for the conference. Notice it's not for sale, educational purposes only. Most of, not all slides have been identified and efforts have been made to contact the artists. All copyrights remain with the original artist. This is not for sale. My technique, or the way I chose people was I tried to categorize the artists for the work they were doing, different kinds of work that they were doing. And so this is what I came up with. Traditionalists, designers, illustrators, visionaries, including the Essaouira group, which I will talk a little bit about when I get down there, the revolutionaries, and the eclectics. So first, I'm going to start with the traditionalists. And my definition of traditionalists was henna portrayed on the body, classical portrait or tableau. Styles might be antique or even abstract. So in the original presentation, I had bios of the artists. I had probably 10 to 15 artists for each section. So this is just a really quick version. Neja Amjadi, Morocco. When I saw something that I connected with in my brain with a well-known artist, I tried to pair them so that you could sort of see my thoughts on the artwork. Her henna is very simple. It's kind of a wedding style, but it's very simple. And here's Matisse. And you can see why I would want to pair them with Matisse. The colors that she did and the style I thought was. This was a lady from India, which I thought was really funny. She has a lot of, I put several of her photos up, but she has a style of henna on the hands that are similar to the dancers of Orisi in India. They have very simple finger dip in henna, or they use lock. They can use other things too. But I never realized why they did that until I saw a performance of the dancers of Orisi, and the red fingertips really emphasize all the movements, the delicate movements that their hands and feet make. So here's Anoop Pillai, and again, this is a very traditional portrayal of wedding, but I like it because of the style that she's working on, and because there are other versions of henna being used at weddings. Here's an Amrita Shergill. She was a famous painter in the 1930s, and she's also doing a wedding scene here. And this is a picture that I took in Morocco at a hotel in Fez. And I asked everybody who the artist was, and nobody could tell me. So unfortunately, but here, this is again, a bride being prepared for the wedding. So you can see the wedding traditions go from Morocco all the way to India. It's one of the most common uses of henna. Here's the designers, artists using henna more commercially as design motifs. This is a woman from San Francisco, and she does this really strange thing where she takes these old photographs and superimposes henna designs over faces or over old gas stations, or her work is really amazing. It's very delicate, but it is, you can see, it is very traditional henna designs. This is a woman from Venezuela who does food drawings, and all her food is made out of henna patterns. This is a ceramicist from Thailand, and he does really wacky things. He makes the hand is really significant with henna, and I use the hand a lot in a lot of my artwork. It's called a hamza, and it's a protective device, and it is Muslim, it is Christian, it is Jewish. The hamza is used everywhere. There are tons of hamzas all over Greece with the eye in the palm of the hand. It's a very, very old symbol. It's warding off the evil eye. But this guy has got these hands that he does in ceramic, and they all have different designs on. He's got one that's got a soap container in the palm of the hand. I guess he's warding off showers or something. And this is my friend from Seattle, Jeannie Lewis, and she is a henna artist and a very creative person. And she's been making these headdresses, which are in a window in downtown Seattle right now. And her headdresses, she started doing this in COVID. This is very traditional Indo-Arabic design work that she does on this one. And this one, the geometric designs and the evil eye are very Berber or Moroccan. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Very Berber Moroccan style. Let me just blow that up a little bit so you can see that. The geometric designs are really typical of different parts of North Africa, and every region has a different type of style. So when I sit down and I work in a style, I try to remain true to that that particular style, unless I'm just doing something completely wacky and not using anything. But I try to respect that the henna design work. Probably more respectful when I'm actually working on bodies than on art, but there's a lot more leeway. Okay, so here's contemporary. This is the illustrators. By the way, I just thought I'd mention I had a lot of fun taking paintings and superimposing henna designs over them. Quite a few years ago, I curated a show called Henna and Beyond. And I had a kids table, and I had red markers, and I had photos of all these classical paintings on the table, and the kids would sit down and come up with some really wacky things. So it was a fun event. So here's the illustrators telling a story. This is an illustration from the Mahabharata. And this person does beautiful paintings. Very traditional henna designs on the paintings. This is a woman from Latvia, and this is like really, really typical Persian-y style design, Persian or Indian. But I just thought it was really funny that the cat is like completely covered with henna designs too. I'd like to have a cat like that. If anybody has any questions, feel free to interrupt me. I can blah blah forever. Pardon?
We would love to see you paint.
Yes, I'm going to show you. I'm going to do it in just as soon as I finish this. I'm going to do the a henna demo.
Okay.
But I wanted you to get an idea. Oh, look who is here, Debbie Razer. Debbie's with us.
Hi.
Her new piece and her work. She is probably one of the most creative geniuses in the henna world right now. I'm going to do a quick close-up just so that you can see that she's using very typical henna patterns in her work. This is her lovely skellies. Debbie, did you use henna on here on the actual wood part?
No, that's paper clay to create a kind of a faux carving.
Okay.
But it's very much a henna inspired design.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the I think this is the Revolutionaries. Henna may be on the body or not. The henna motifs are used to evoke another world, and ambience are part of a mythological, symbolist, or abstract piece. This is Mohammed Zuzoff, and this is all henna on paper. I think it's paper. It might be on wood, but when I saw his work, I was like, "Oh, that's incredible! It's like Miro."
अरे यार बैटरी लो
I can't understand. Was that a question?
No, it's somebody talking in the background.
Okay. The Essaouira group was a group of Moroccan painters who somehow caught the attention of a gallery in Paris, and the Parisian gallery was encouraging this group of artists, and a lot of them were very traditional painters. This is Julia Serba from Siberia and from Berlin, and she's using henna on skin and making talismans. This is Farid Belkari of Morocco. He does huge sculptures with henna and very, very unusual work. I did a little Picasso in the background. Oh, this is the Revolutionaries. This is in the Brussels Metro. This is Hamsi Boubacar, who all of his work is dedicated to peace. He works for the United Nations. He does a lot of things for children, and he's really a great artist, and he uses henna patterns all the time in his work. This is Lola Asadi in Morocco. This is all done with henna, the whole background, and it's bits of poetry. And she's very strong feminist, and she uses the henna as a way of almost making the women disappear into the painting, as she feels that women are often disappeared. This is Laila Shawa of Palestine. She is very outspoken, very strong feminist. This is called The Prisoner. And I saw this and compared it to the colors were similar, and the greenery. Shirin Neshat of Iran, she's very famous. She's also a strong feminist. And this is from an exhibition called Turbulent, and she actually draws the henna patterns onto the photographs. Another unique way of using photography in henna. And this is Hind Al-Mansour. She's from Saudi Arabia, but she lives in Minnesota. And I have been in touch with her, and she works on silk. And she does huge installations with the combination of inks and henna. Okay, this is the Eclectica. I'm going to zip through this quickly. Marina Bishkova, also from Siberia. She does these enchanted dolls. This one is called Survivor. It's a breast statement about breast cancer and beautiful henna paintings on the dolls. During the show that I curated, we had one of her dolls. It was the most expensive piece in the show. It was like $14,000. This is a couple, and she designs these henna patterns, and they dance and project the henna patterns onto the bodies as they're dancing, and it's just beautiful. And this is a woman I met on Pinterest, not Pinterest, on Flickr. And she lives in Vanuatu, and she uses henna patterns in her embroidery, which was kind of interesting when Hadi said that my other piece looked like embroidery, but she does actual embroidery with traditional patterns. And this is, I think, the next to the last picture. This is goat skin stained with henna. He hammers out the designs and then stains the goat skins with henna. And there's me. This is an early piece I did with paper. I did the little bats individually and then glued them on. However, the paper didn't hold up very well, and some of the paper curled, and so it's just sitting around in my house. It was an early piece, and I learned a lot from doing this. So that is the end of the presentation, and now
the fun part.
Now I will actually do something. I don't know how to, should I stop, I guess stop sharing?
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. We see you. Perfect.
All right. So I am going to move, the camera over to my little desk here, my little work desk. And if you can't hear me when I move the camera, let me know. I'm basically going to show you how I do the disguised henna. So, whoops. Okay, I need you to be able to see the board. Can you see
Okay.
the board? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So I have two different ways of doing henna. One of them is in a Mylar container. It's a Mylar Comb. This is really the way most people do henna, although some people use plastic bottles. I have a problem with the plastic bottles. I can't squeeze hard enough. And I like these combs because I buy my henna from Ashkamar, and it always comes with 10 pre-rolled cones. So that makes it easy. So I have this one, and it makes little tiny delicate lines. And then I have my own cones that have metal tips on them. And I have them color coded for different sizes. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a demo on how I work with the cones. Just a second, I need to grab a piece of paper, paper towel.
Uh, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So I have for all the art pieces that you do you use the pure henna, or do you use paint and use the henna pattern?
I do both.
Oh, okay.
I do both. It depends on whether I want the henna to be seen or whether I want it to be underneath the paint. And sometimes I do paintings that have no henna, but I use puffy paint or fabric paint out of a tube. There's a brand of paint called Tulip. And I'll show you a new piece that I'm working on in a minute, where I have some parts of it that are done with henna and some that are done just with the puffy paint. Okay. So I'm just gonna do a quick. I think I'm gonna do a paint. So can you see what I'm doing?
Just at the bottom of the screen. There we go. Now we can see more.
Are those cake decorating tips?
Similar to that.
Now there's no pencil drawing under that, right? It's just simply.
Piece of clapboard, and I'm freehanding it.
So it's just freehand.
And I'm just doing it really simply. This is very simple, and very, very typical design. Just so that you can see how it works. You can draw it if you want to draw something first. You can draw it, but usually I don't really bother. The only thing is that if I'm doing something with henna, I'm not putting a lot of detail in it, because the detail comes later when I add the paint. And I use a lot of different special effects besides the henna underneath. I use Crackle Paint. Sometimes I use glass bead gel. I like my work to be really textural, so that people really feel like they can reach out and touch it. In fact, when I'm showing my artwork, when I'm completely finished with the piece, a lot of times I will put like 8 or 10 layers of gloss gel on it to make it really pop. There are several steps that I have to go through, though, because if I'm doing this technique and covering up the henna, I have to make sure that it is really sealed good.
I see some henna on your hand too.
Oh yes, I did a Moroccan design on my hand a couple days ago. You can see how the henna is really dark on my palm and it's lighter as it goes up the arm. That's really typical.
How long do they last on the body?
I usually say a week to 10 days. If you take really good care of it, it can last a lot longer, especially if it's on your feet or your hands. By good care, I mean that you don't bathe in the first 24 hours and let the henna soak in really good, and you don't scrub or exfoliate your skin over and over on top of it. Okay, so it's a really simple um, traditional Indian style design. I say Indian style. There's lots of different styles in India. Um, there's a specific wedding style. Um, so you know that's one of the things that you learn if you really get into henna is how many different styles there are all over the world.
So I have a question about this using this real henna on any kind of art piece. How do you seal it, and will it last for a long time?
Yes. Some of those pieces that I showed you at the very beginning, like the picture that was in the Moroccan frame, that I did that. I did that in 2010. So yeah, yes. So I seal it. I do. I seal it two different ways. The very first thing I do when it's completely dry, you have to let it dry for a few hours till it's really, really good and dry. And then I seal it with something called super surface sealer. And I put it on the supply list, and I'm going to go grab the can so you can see it. Okay, so this super surface sealer is made for anything organic like flowers or plants, and it seals
Get a
it.
little bit farther away from the camera.
Okay.
It's not in focus. There we go. A little bit better.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I spray it with the super surface sealer because that will keep it from basically from degenerating underneath the paint. It'll hold its shape. And then once I've done that, I go over it with a clear coat of artist medium. And I usually just use matte for the beginning. So I'm going to show you. So I can't really paint this until it's completely dry. So the next step that I do is I seal it. And so this piece has been sealed. I used the spray on it, and I used clear coat. So this is step 2. This is just getting it really nice and sealed. All right.
Okay.
So that when I finish that and it's dried, I coat it with white paint.
Oh.
Acrylic paint?
Yes.
Wow, this is awesome.
I coat it with acrylic paint. And then the fun begins, because then I have to decide what colors I'm going to use or how I'm going to decorate it. And then here is the finished product.
It's
Now,
so
do you
beautiful.
use regular brushes to?
Yes. I use
Is this a?
really tiny brushes.
Oh, this is a brush. I thought it's a spray paint.
No, this is by hand. Everything
Wow.
by hand. You can see all the shading that I did around to make it really pop. Now here, these little gold points here, those are done with puffy paint. I hand painted every place where the henna was. I painted in gold. And I actually painted the background first, and then I started filling in. A lot of times the first coat of paint doesn't quite do it, and I have to go over it again. And then I don't know if you can see. I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to move the camera, but I also used Crackle Paint.
Pull it back a teeny bit.
Can you see the Crackle Paint? I use Crackle Medium,
Huh.
and that gives it a nice antique-y finish.
I think it's too close for the camera to focus.
Okay.
Just go a little bit back, then it will.
Yeah, just a little bit more.
There, I could see it. There.
Still little more back.
All the white patches that we see, it's because of the Crackle Paint?
No, the
The
Crackle
patch-
Paint is actually dark. I rub dark paint into the after the Crackle Paint dries, I coat it with black paint, and then I rub it and rub the surface off, and the Crackle Paint leaves cracks in it so that it's very antique-y.
Oh,
Can you see that at all? I have some photos. I have a couple of photos of pieces I've done with Crackle Paint that you could probably see the crackle better.
Okay.
So that's the result of the whole process that we've just gone through with applying the henna, drying it, sealing it, coating it. I am working on a new piece. Now, I've finished the painting, but I haven't done the glazes yet. So it's kind of garish, but it's a green man.
Okay, so what steps will you continue to do on this before it's finished?
I will probably put a coat of artist medium. I will let it dry. I will put some Crackle Paint around some of the lighter areas in the leaves, and then I will rub dark paint into it, and then I will probably do about 5 or 6 coats of artist medium, and when it dries, I'll cover it with a glossy varnish, and it will come out looking like a porcelain tile.
Wow.
is this a clayboard or a wooden can?
Clayboard. Yeah, it was
Okay.
clayboard. I just discovered clayboard. I've been using just plain masonite, but I really like the clayboard a lot.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's pretty gorgeous.
Yeah.
I'll show you another piece.
Wow.
This is actually this is one of my most mixed media pieces because I started it with henna. I'm having a hard time fitting the whole thing in. I started it with henna, but I also collaged on some fabric.
This is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I show it, people stand in front of it and stare at it and go, "What is that? Is that enamel?" They think it's like what do you call that enameling process? You know,
Cloisonne?
cloisonne. They think it's
Yes.
yeah, they think it's cloisonne. It's really beautiful. But I'll tell you one thing, I drive my photographer crazy because I use so much gold and it really doesn't photograph very well. Gold is really hard to photograph. But the 2 lions at the bottom are pieces of fabric that I schlepped around with me for years and couldn't figure out what to do with them. And then this piece just evolved, and it's called Sekhmet's Gate. Sekhmet is the Egyptian war goddess.
It's incredible.
Yeah,
Just-
that's fantastic.
Oh,
This took me a long time to do, with lots of layers.
it's just exquisite.
But it all started with henna.
About how many layers?
Oh, probably alternating between henna paint and gluing, probably 5 to 6 layers.
Wow, this looks like an antique piece.
Yeah, it does. Amazing.
I have another piece that I'm really proud of. And this one is called Endangered Mandala. And this also is a combination of henna. I laid the whole thing out with henna first. And then I shaded everything. And then the 4 circles have endangered animals in them. I made botanical drawings, glued them down, and put crackle paint over them. And the center mandala is made out of henna paint and little bits of medieval scientific treatises that I glued down, botanical and animal scientific, from different I've got the Chinese, Arabic, Jewish, something else I forget. So it's just little pieces that I glued down.
Beautiful. I love it. I love your palette. I love your color palettes. It's just, I just love it.
Thank you.
Ah.
So, you know, those little clayboard things are really great to practice with, you know, if you want to practice with henna. But if you're going to tackle something big like this, be prepared to spend a lot of time. Okay, I'm trying to think of something else. I have some other pictures on my computer that I can show you the close-ups of, so you can see the crackle paint a little better. Oh, somebody asked me whether I always use henna or whether I sometimes just use paint. I was going through a phase for a while where I was doing paintings, but this doesn't have a speck of henna on it. But I know Debbie has seen this one a million bazillion times. This is a piece that I did called Twitter Revolution in Heaven, and this one is very political. I did it to honor the Green Revolution in Iran, when the young people were out twittering and trying to change the political situation. And all of my angels have little henna fingertips on.
And cell phone and an iPad on their hand.
Yes, that's called Twitter Revolution in Heaven, and all the angels are twittering. And the Iranian words at the bottom, I actually wrote them out in English. A friend of mine translated them into Farsi, and then I copied what he wrote out in Farsi. And I was really proud of myself. I had to do it 3 times to make sure I got every little dot perfect. And
I read it. You did correctly. Yeah.
Yeah. He said it looked like a really smart 5th grader did it. But Hadi, can you read?
Oh yes, I read it before. I don't remember what it was before, but yeah, I read it. You did a good job.
Okay.
Copying it. Yeah.
The Twitter messages say, I'm sick and tired of rules. There's just no negotiating with the boss. Meet me under the apricot tree. Pass it on. Shh. And I think the last thing is a quote from Kennedy. Actually, it's those who make peaceful change impossible make violent revolution inevitable. So this piece I'm particularly proud of because it was recently chosen for the cover of a book on Iran and the Twitter revolution in Iran.
Wonderful.
But not in Iran. In a outside Iran. If they use it inside Iran, they get in trouble.
Yeah. Right. Anyway.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Absolutely love it.
Are we coming to the end?
We are. This has been just